Okay, this is Mr. Hammer back again with question number 1 from chapter 10, section 10.3. Here we're writing algebraic expressions for each statement. If you go to the website, you'll see a couple pages there that will show you how to convert words into numbers. But one of the most simple things to do is to simply work down. So you see the number, you write it out. More than, well, that's going to translate to plus, and a number, we are simply going to write, when we write a number, we're going to write n. Sorry about that. So this would be 6 plus n. The next one, a number, so n multiplied by x, 8. So n times 8. But actually, when you write down n times 8, the really proper way to write that is to turn it around and to write it like this. When you have a number, and beside it you have a letter or a variable, and there's nothing in between here, it's assumed that that is multiplication. Okay, so the proper way to write it is 8 times n, although n times 8 like this would be correct. Now here's where it becomes tricky with the minuses. A number decreased by 6, so it's a number and it's decreased by 6. So if, for example, that number was 10 and you decreased 10 by 6, you would take 6 away from the 10, so it's n minus 6. The next one, a number, so n, in this case it's divided by 4. You can write it like that, n divided by 4, or n divided by 4. Either of those ones would be correct. And that gives you the answer to number 1. Let's move ahead to number 5. Now in this case we're moving to write it in words. So we're starting with numbers and we're moving to words, and it says use the words a number in place of the variable. So the variable is n, so we have a number. And you can say various things. So you could actually just say a number plus 8, or a number added to 8. That would work. Next one, 6a. That means, as I just told you, 6a is 6 times a, or 6 multiplied by a number. So 6 multiplied by a number. 6 multiplied by a number. Excellent. Moving right along. We had this example before. We have p, which is a number. So we just write down a number. That's my p. And then it's divided by 5. So a number divided by 5. Very easy so far. Now it gets a little tricky. Here's k, minus 11. So it could be a number. There's a few ways to write this. You can write a number decreased by 11. That's the easiest way to write it. Let's look at the next one. The next one says, sorry, just fiddling with my pen, says 27 minus n. So we could say 27 decreased by a number. So 27, 7 decreased by a number. By a number. And finally, we have x squared. Well, what would that be? That's x times x, or a number squared. We could just say that. We could say a number squared, because that's all we're doing. We're taking a number and we're squaring it. Let's move on to number 6. Write an algebraic expression for each statement. So we've got a statement, we're going to turn it into a number. So let's look through. Double a number and add 3. So double is 2. A number means 2 times a number. Well, we don't need the multiplication sign. We can just write 2n. So double a number is 2n. And add 3. So plus 3. So 2n plus 3. Now here's where it becomes tricky with the wording, because so far we have double first and we see a 2. Then we see number and then we see n. And then we see add 3 and we see plus 3. It works from left to right. But when you see this, subtract 5 from a number, this is when it gets tricky. So you have to look out for the from a number when you're doing subtraction, because it actually is the opposite way. So if you think about this for a second, let's pretend that it's not subtract 5 from a number. Let's say it's subtract 5 from 10. How would you write that? If you, let's say, had 10 apples and you're going to subtract 5 of those apples from 10, you would actually write 10 minus 5. Notice what happens here. Whereas before, if we were to have decrease, if we wrote decrease a number by 5, it would be in order. We would do decrease a number, so we would do the number n and decrease it by 5, n minus 5. But when you have subtract 5 from a number, you actually switch places. So the 10 in this case goes to the front, and subtracting 5 goes to the back. So let's erase this and clean this back up and get to our actual answer. So what does this actually mean? We would write the number first, n minus 5. That's what subtract 5 from a number. We're taking this 5 away from my number here. So you switch. So you have to remember to do that. Then it says multiply by 2. So here's where it becomes tricky. Now we're adding order of operations. So it says to do this part first and then multiply. So if I wrote this, then multiply by 2, have I done it correctly? Well, not really, because in this case, order of operations would tell me to do 5 times 2 first because multiplication is done first. But our language here, our words tell us to subtract 5 from a number first and then multiply by 2. So all we have to do is put brackets there. Now I would subtract 5 from a number first and then I would multiply by 2. Let's move on to C. Subtract 1/2 of a number from 17. Well, I'm seeing that I'm subtracting a number from something. So I know this 17 has to come in the beginning because I'm going to take everything away from that 17. So whatever I'm taking away is taken away from the 17. How much am I subtracting them? I'm subtracting 1/2 of a number. Well, what is 1/2 of a number? Well, here's a number, and I want half of it. Well, I could do that number divided by 2, and that would be half of that number. Or I could write n divided by 2. That would also be half of a number. So I could do 17 minus n over 2. And that would be subtracting 1/2 of a number. I'm subtracting it from 17. So it's funny. In this case, you read it from right to left. Subtract 1/2 of a number from 17. Whereas here we read left to right. Next one, divide a number by 7, then add 6. Well, that's easy. Take my number, divide it by 7, then add 6. Next one, E, a number is subtracted from 28. Here we have that issue again. We're going to subtract everything from 28, which means we start with 28, and we'll subtract that number from 28. And if you forget this, just put in a number for a number. So pretend it's 8 is subtracted from 28. Well, that would be 28 minus 8. Here, 20, now let's look at F. 28 is subtracted from a number. So in this case, they're kind of trying to trick us up. So from a number. So we're subtracting this time from a number. So we start from a number, and we'll subtract 28 from that number. And that's going to be the end of number 6.